Hi everyone, my name is Taylin, registered dietitian from Tacoma, Washington. Today I will be showing you how to make 3 meals in 30 minutes, perfect for 1 to 2 people. We're gonna actually start with our dinner recipe, stuffed peppers. Let me introduce you to our ingredients. So I've got 4 peppers. You can use any color you want. I like red, so I'm going to go with red. A lot of people will use green instead. We are stuffing them with black beans, rice, but you can use quinoa, wild rice, bulgur, whatever you have at home. Since we're trying to make this quick and easy, I'm actually going to be using a 90-second instant rice that's mixed with some corn and some spices already, so it's going to give you some extra Spanish flavor. You got to preheat your oven to 350 degrees. We have salsa. You can use rojo or verde, whichever kind you want. We've got some spices too. Cumin, chili powder, and garlic powder. Fresh garlic, of course. Onion. I store my cut onion in a salsa container for good preservation. And some cilantro. And then cheese. I'm gonna be using a vegan cheddar by Daye. Wash your peppers. I am de-seeding my peppers. So I cut off the tops. Make sure you have a sharp knife. And you could dispose of your tops in your compost, but I want to keep the tops as a garnish because I think it'll look cute if we serve the stuffed peppers with a little pepper top. Okay, so why do I like using the red peppers? Because they're sweeter. I'm not a huge fan of green peppers, they're a little bit more bitter. So using the red peppers makes it a much more pleasurable experience for me. So now that our peppers are de-seeded, we're gonna cook up our beans because once our beans are done, we'll add the rice and the cilantro and the salsa, and then we're gonna stuff the peppers. So you can set your peppers aside. Pop those guys in here. My pepper bottoms are cooking. I got my cast iron really hot in the oven. All right, step number 2. You're going to need a little bit of butter or oil, something to add a non-stick agent to your pan because we're gonna saute up onions. Turn your stove on medium heat. Dazzle your pan with a sploosh of oil. Now, how much onion, you ask? I don't know. I'm gonna use a third of a half of an onion. I'm gonna keep the onion minimal here. It'll saute. If you really like onions, go ahead and load up with your onion, but my onions are really, really big. So if you have a big onion like me, you may not need to use much of it, but if you have a small onion, you might need to use the whole thing. I'm slicing it into strips, and then we'll slice it or dice it the other way to get nice squares. So if you're unsure if your stove is ready to take on the onion, go ahead and grab a nugget and drop it into the pan, and you should hear a sizzle. No sizzle, it's not ready, which is fine because I'm not ready either. Chop up some garlic because we're gonna add that to the pan once our onions cook down. Now, if you're cooking for one and you don't do a lot of chopping with garlic, go ahead and buy a jar of diced garlic. It'll be sitting in its garlicky juices. And it should have a pretty strong garlic flavor. Nothing is gonna be as strong as fresh garlic, that's for sure, but it'll do. And then of course you've got garlic powder that you can use as well. But again, I don't think it gives it the same garlicky flavor. So if you're a lover of garlic, do yourself a favor, get a head of garlic. It doesn't cost a lot, and it lasts for a long time. So keep it in a dry, dark place for the best preservation. So while the pan is heating, we can drain and rinse our beans. If you've got a colander or a sieve or a strainer, that will make it go by really quickly. Set that aside. I'll go ahead and I'll open up my Spanish rice. So follow the instructions. If you're not doing rice or grains, you can actually get the quinoa version of this, which is nice because, side note, quinoa is a grass, not a grain. So that works nicely. This instructions just say to squeeze, break up the rice, tear a little corner of it. That might be more than 2 inches. And then put it in the microwave for 90 seconds. I love those packets because even if I weren't preparing this small meal, I could easily microwave that at work and serve it with some vegetables, put it on top of a salad. It's kind of like a Mexican thing with some rice and with beans and frozen corn. You could just have it with leftover protein like your fish or your chicken or your tofu. So those packets are great when you're in a pinch, and they're great if you're cooking a small batch. Otherwise, if you've got rice in the home anyways, just use the rice that you have. You can use day-old rice, you can use same-day rice. Keep something like that in your home at all times, and that will make meal prep super fast and simple. Okay? Our microwave just went off, and so we should check our oil again. I don't know if you can hear it because I literally just put in 1 onion, but it's sizzling, it's ready to go. So transfer your diced onions to your pan. And I'm not gonna add the garlic yet because the garlic is cut up smaller than the onion, which means the garlic will cook faster than the onion, which means our garlic might burn. So just put in the onion and then we'll add in the garlic after 2 minutes when it becomes soft and a little bit more translucent. Sizzle, sizzle, baby, sizzle, sizzle. Okay, so while that's cooking down, since there's really nothing else to prep for this recipe because that's how easy it is, I'm going to gather my ingredients for lunch, which is going to be tuna salad. Hey! So I gathered all of my ingredients for the tuna salad. Ta-da! And we'll make that in a moment once our peppers are in the oven. And so now I'm gonna add my garlic. Give it a nice stir. Okay, it's good to go. So I'll let that sizzle for a minute, and then I'm going to add my beans. And with the beans, we're going to add our spices. Let's do a teaspoon of some chili powder, maybe a little less. We'll do a half a teaspoon of chili powder, and we'll do a teaspoon of cumin. And a half a teaspoon of garlic powder. That was a little less than a half. Okay. You could probably add like cayenne if you wanted to give it some smoky spice, or smoked paprika. Actually, I want to add smoked paprika. I'm gonna do that. Okay, that was a lot. It'll be good. Okay, so this is starting to brown. It's looking good. Now I can add in my beans. One idea that just came to me is you could probably do all of this in an Instapot, right? So if you're cooking for 1 to 2 and you want to have minimal dishes, I'm thinking an Instapot could totally be done here. So I would saute everything in the Instapot, and then you'd fill your beans, or fill your peppers with your beans and rice. And by then, your Instapot will have cooled, and you can put in the little carrier basket and put the filled peppers in the Instapot, and then turn it on the bake method. This is an Instapot recipe. Okay, so what are we doing now? Now we have to add our rice and salsa and cilantro. Okay, let's chop up the cilantro. How much, you ask? Good question. Let's do a quarter of a bunch, and then I'll have some more for the top of it. The cilantro is an herb, so you don't really need to like cook it down. You just need to get it a little hot because they'll burn and lose their flavor and all their rich antioxidants if you cook them for too long. So I'll cut off a little bit of the bottom stems, but I don't need to cut off all the stems because it gives it flavor. I know, rice, I'm coming. Of course, if you want to expedite this even more, you could use dried cilantro. I just don't feel like dried cilantro has as strong of a flavor, so that's why I'm using fresh. In goes the rice. It's hot. Ooh, it smells so good. So if you're using leftover rice, like the old rice, you might want to microwave it with some water or with some vegetable broth or chicken stock, because it'll be a little dry, and you want to have a little bit of that moisture when you are mixing it in with the beans and the onions. I like how the package said there's peppers and corns. There's like literally 2 corn kernels and like a sprinkle of pepper. That's funny. So we're going to add 3/4 cup, half cup of salsa. And I don't know where my half cup is, so I'm just gonna use, I didn't know where my half teaspoon was either, I just used the whole. So I'll just fill the half cup line on my 1 cup measuring. All right, mix that in, and mix in the cilantro. I'm looking at my medley, and it looks a bit dry. Now, how do I know it looks dry? Because I'm literally assessing how wet it is. And it's not very wet. So I do want to add a little bit more salsa. I don't think that half cup was enough. So if I put in dry rice in a pepper that's gonna be baked, it's gonna be really dry. We don't want that. And step 4 is to fill your pepper. Boop, boop, boop. Here's our mixture. That was super fast. I'm just going to fill our beautiful peppers. Yum, yum, yum. Done. Now we get to make lunch and breakfast. Recipe number 2 is lunch. We will be making tuna salad. So to do that, you need a can of tuna. Of course, you can use any kind of fish. So if you want to do canned salmon, that's fine by me as well. I'm using some skipjack tuna, good source of omega-3 fatty acids. And then our base is going to be a mixture of mayo and yogurt. Now, why do I mix them? It's to lower the fat content, lower the calorie content, and increase the protein content. So instead of just having all mayo, I'm going to reduce that by adding some yogurt instead. Then we were seasoning it with dill. This is some dried dill. If you have fresh, even better. And then some mustard. I'm using a spicy brown mustard. You could also use Dijon or regular yellow mustard. My husband isn't a big fan of the yellow mustard, so that's why I'm using this one. And then relish. You can do sweet relish, you can do sour relish. It depends on which flavor profile you like. Now, normally for this, I would use jalapenos and a splash of the jalapeno juice, but I forgot them. So I will be using some crushed chili to give me that spice. And I don't really have anything for the juiciness, so I'm gonna taste test it. And if I still think it needs a little bit of tang, maybe I'll drop a couple teaspoons of apple cider vinegar. Okay? And then of course we need that crunch factor. So I've got a stalk of celery and just a nugget of onion. I'm just gonna chop it really, really small. Of course you can skip it, but I'm telling you, it gives it just an extra oomph that I think you need. Okay, what first? Get a bowl. Don't forget to wipe off your tuna can. Then we're gonna open it. So I add my tuna to our bowl, and then I'm going to start with a tablespoon of mayonnaise. You can use avocado oil mayonnaise, olive oil mayonnaise, whatever you got. And then 3 tablespoons plain, non-fat Greek yogurt. You can do this in like pea salads. You can do this in egg salads. You can do this in baking. It's a great option. And then I'll do a teaspoon of mustard, and 2 teaspoons of mustard. And a tablespoon of the relish. And a teaspoon of, half a tablespoon of dill. You ever just make stuff and you've never measured it out? That's me in this recipe. I never measured out, I don't know. And a dash of chili flakes. That should be good. Of course you need some pinches of salt. Salt is essential when cooking, especially if you're using low sodium ingredients. They do sell tuna that's canned, that's low sodium. So if that's according to your diet, then check that out. Fresh cracked pepper, of course, and lots of it. Now I'm going to mash everything together, and I'm just checking to see if it's the consistency I like. So I'm looking at this, I really like this texture. I definitely don't think it needs any more mayo or yogurt. And what I recommend is actually make your tuna a little bit on the soggier side, because the fish is packed in water and it's going to absorb all of the fats and the moisture as it sits and dries out over time. And no one wants like a dry tuna salad. Well, I mean, if you do, then kudos to you. But I do not. All right, I'm gonna cut off the ends of my celery. I feel like they're dry and bland in flavor. I used to not like celery, but you know, your taste buds change. So I'm going to chop this up really, really small. You could also use celery salt. Instead of using celery and salt, use celery salt, and that would work really nicely. Okay, in you go. Using green onion would also work really nicely because it's not as strong as white onion. So I could get down with that. Guys, that's it. There's our tuna salad. So this made a good 2 cups. And with these 2 cups, depending on what your portion is, you're gonna get 2 to 4 servings, which is great for 1 to 2 people. Now I love this because you can add some sprouts and throw it in on a tortilla or on some bread, and now you've got yourself a tuna salad sandwich or a tuna salad sandwich wrap. Or you can even put it on a bed of lettuce for a green salad, and you will be content, I hope. On to the next recipe. Our next recipe is overnight oats. There are so many ways to make overnight oats. I'm gonna show you my way, and I hope that you enjoy. I will be making 2 servings, one for me, one for my husband, but overnight oats keep really well, so you could actually make enough for yourself for, I think, 3 nights. So I will actually be starting with my milk. You can use whichever milk you'd like. I'm choosing soy milk. I'm using an unsweetened soy milk as well, about 2/3 to 3/4 of a cup, a little less than a cup. I am gonna give my husband a little more because I just put more oats and milk in his because he likes it that way. Okay, so since I'm using unsweetened milk, I'm going to sweeten it with a splash of a sweetener. I'm choosing maple syrup because I think it just dissolves better. Honey's really thick. And for that, I'll use a teaspoon. So, there we go. And then we'll add a splash of cinnamon. How much? Doesn't matter. However much you'd like. There's no such thing as too much cinnamon in my opinion. And then I whisk. If you're going to do chia seeds, this would be a good time to add the chia seeds as well. I'll be using some hemp hearts. So I will add 1 to 2 teaspoons of hemp hearts, depending on your omega-3 and protein needs. You can use flaxseed, but if you're going to use flaxseed, make sure that you grind it up because flax seeds in their own, or linseeds is another name for them, are undigestible. So they'll just pass right through if you don't grind them up. Now we get to add our fruit. So I have some blueberries I'm gonna give Luis a half a cup of blueberries and myself a half a cup of blueberries. Now I am using frozen. Why? Because that's what I have on hand. But you can use frozen or fresh. I like that the frozen turns my oats blue. I just think it looks really cool. I've got banana. Another good combo with the blueberries would be strawberries. You could also do coconut. Coconut would be really nice with the blueberries, especially if the milk that you got was like a coconut almond milk. I think that'd be really tasty. Frozen banana works really well. And if you, ooh, our peppers are done. Okay, time out. So they have been in the oven for 30 minutes. I did go back and do an extra 10 minutes. And the peppers look great. The skin is wrinkly, the cheese is melted. They smell amazing. I'm excited. I'm really excited. Okay, back to breakfast. So, like I was saying, you can use frozen banana. And the frozen banana is nice because say you have a whole bunch of bananas and you don't get to them all in time, and now you've got some brown spotty bananas. Well, what's the best solution? You gotta freeze them and use them for a smoothie. And why I like using the frozen spotty bananas for a smoothie is because they're so sweet and it's the texture that's off. So if you have that sweetness and you blend it, you're ignoring the texture, and so they make a perfect smoothie. Likewise, they're perfect for your overnight oats. And if you're doing it that way, you don't even need the maple syrup. So you get to save yourself some added sugar there. I'll add those guys in. Now, a lot of people will add their oats in first, which I used to do. But I feel like it's actually really hard to mix everything together when I do it that way. So I like to add the liquids and the seeds and the fruit, and then the oats. For mine, I'll do half a cup, and Luis, 3/4 of a cup. I am using whole rolled oats, not instant oats, because I personally feel like when you use instant oats, it's too mushy of a texture and I don't like it. You're likely gonna feel fuller using the whole oats instead of the instant oats, and it's better stability for your blood sugar. Okay, now we don't want this to look too dry because remember the oats are going to absorb the liquid. So I like that there's extra fluid here. This looks really good. The final thing to do is to add our protein. You've got options. You can add a yogurt, like a Greek yogurt. You can add protein powder. And if that's the case, you really want to fill up with the liquid because then it's going to be too dry and like way too sweet, and you would not need maple syrup or honey if you are adding protein powder because most of them are flavored already. My protein is going to be a nut butter. So I'll do peanut butter on mine and sunflower butter on his and mix it. Almond butter can work as well. Sunflower butter is great for a nut-sensitive household. Or just to try something new, you know? Okay, that's it, folks. Here is your overnight oats. Tomorrow they will be perfect and soft, and you can have them hot, you can have them cold, whatever is your preference. You can add more nuts to the top, you can add seeds to the top, but regardless, you've got a great breakfast for 1 to 2 people. That's it. We did it. We did all of our recipes a little bit longer than 30 minutes, but that's okay. You make the time for yourself and you will be pleasantly surprised with what you can accomplish. It does take a little bit of planning, but it's well worth it because it's less stress in the future. Well, until next time.